Settle in, close your eyes, and prepare to drift through one of the deepest mysteries in the world of One Piece. A mystery that has haunted the world government for 800 years. A mystery carried in the blood of those who refuse to bow. A mystery hidden in a single letter. Tonight, we explore the will of D, the inherited dream that the gods themselves fear, and the secret that connects the past, present, and future of an entire world. There exists a letter. A single letter that appears in certain names, scattered across the world. Not common, but not rare either. Present enough to be noticed. Hidden enough to remain mysterious. This letter is D, just D, a simple initial that sits in the middle of a name, dividing it, marking it, transforming it into something more than just a name. Monkey D. Luffy, Gall D. Roger, Portgas D. Ace, Marshall D. Teach, Trafalgar de Waterlaw, Jaguar de Sol. The list goes on, stretching back through generations, through centuries, perhaps even through millennia. But this is not just a letter. It is not a meaningless initial passed down through families without significance. No, the world. Government knows what the D means. They know, and they fear it. They have feared it for 800 years. They have tried to erase it, to hide it, to eliminate those who carry it. And yet it persists. Generation after generation. Appearing in the most unexpected places. In Marines. In pirates. In revolutionaries. In scholars. The D refuses to disappear. The five elders, the highest visible authority in the world government, call those who carry the D by a specific name. They call them the natural enemies of God, not enemies of the government, not enemies of order, enemies of God. Think about what that means. What kind of threat must someone pose to be considered an enemy not of a political system, but of divinity itself? What kind of power, what kind of will, what kind of destiny must be carried in that single letter for the gods to fear it? And there is fear. Real fear. The kind of fear that lasts 800 years. The kind of fear that makes you hunt down children whose only crime was being born to the wrong father. The kind of fear that makes you erase entire islands from existence because they got too close to understanding what the D truly means. This is not political calculation. This is existential dread. The world government, the celestial dragons who call themselves gods, they believe that the D represents something capable of destroying everything they have built. And they might be right. But what is the D? What does it mean? What power does it carry? These questions have no simple answers. Or rather, they have too many answers. Too many theories. Too many possibilities. The D is a mystery wrapped in legend, wrapped in blood, wrapped in 800 years of carefully maintained ignorance. Most people in the world of One Piece don't even know that the D is significant. They see these names and think nothing of it. Just a middle initial. Just a family tradition. Nothing special. Nothing to worry about. But those who know, those who have studied the Forbidden's history, those who have reached the end of the Grand Line and learned the truth, they understand. The D is not just a letter. It is a legacy. It is a promise. It is a threat. It is the memory of something that was destroyed but refused to die. It is the will of those who came before, passed down through blood and spirit, waiting for the day when it can finally be fulfilled. The D is the thing that keeps the gods awake at night. The thing that makes the world government's control feel temporary, unstable, built on sand that the tide will eventually wash away. And the tide is coming. After 800 years, the bearers of D are gathering. Roger started something when he died. Luffy continues it without even knowing what he continues. Dragon fights against the system that fears the D-Law, seeks the truth about what was erased. Blackbeard pursues power in the name of the D, though perhaps he does not understand what he carries. All of them, knowingly or unknowingly, are part of something larger, something ancient, something that was supposed to be destroyed but survived anyway. The will of D tonight, we will explore this will. We will trace its origins back to the age that was erased from history. We will examine those who have carried it, those who have died for it, those who have laughed in the face of death because of it. We will consider what it means to be a natural enemy of God, and why the gods are right to be afraid. We will drift through 800 years of hidden history, scattered clues, and inherited dreams. And perhaps, by the end, we will understand what the D truly represents. Or perhaps we will only understand why it must remain mysterious. Why some truths can only be learned by those brave enough, strong enough, worthy enough to reach the end of the Grand Line and laugh at what they find there. The will of D, the name the world fears. The legacy that refuses to die. Let us begin. To understand the D, we must first understand where it comes from. And to understand where it comes from, we must journey back to a time that officially does not exist. A century that was erased so thoroughly that even speaking of it is a crime punishable by death. The Void Century. 100 years of history, deliberately removed from every record, every document, every story. 100 years that the world government forbids anyone from researching, from discussing, from even thinking about. But why? What happened during those 100 years that was so dangerous it had to be completely erased? The answer lies in a kingdom. Not just any kingdom, but one of immense power and influence. A kingdom so advanced, so powerful, so significant that its very existence threatened those who would later form the world government. This was the Ancient Kingdom, as it has come to be called. We don't know its true name. That name, like everything else about it, was scrubbed from history. But we know it existed. We know it was real. And we know that it stood for something that the 20 kings who would later establish the world government found intolerable. What did the Ancient Kingdom stand for? We can only piece together fragments, hints, whispers carried forward through the centuries. But certain things seem clear. The Ancient Kingdom believed in freedom, in knowledge, in equality among all peoples. It was advanced beyond anything that existed at the time, possessing technology and understanding that the modern world has not recovered even after 800 years. It had the means to create indestructible poneglyphs that would preserve truth beyond any attempt to destroy it. It had connections with peoples across the entire world, forming alliances that transcended race, geography, culture. It was, in every sense, a civilization that looked toward the future rather than clinging to the past. And this made it dangerous. Because the 20 kings, the alliance that would oppose the Ancient Kingdom, they represented something different. They represented hierarchy, order, control. The idea that some people were meant to rule and others were meant to serve. The idea that knowledge should be controlled, information should be restricted, power should be concentrated in the hands of a select few. These two visions, these two ways of organizing the world, were fundamentally incompatible. They could not coexist. One had to destroy the other. What followed was war. Not a small war, not a regional conflict, but a war that consumed the entire world. A war that would be remembered, if it were remembered at all, as the greatest conflict in history. The Ancient Kingdom, for all its power and advancement, stood alone against 20 united kings. And numbers eventually matter. The war raged across the world. Islands were destroyed. Entire peoples were displaced. The very geography of the world might have been altered by the weapons deployed. And in the end, the ancient kingdom fell. But the kingdom's defeat was not enough for the victors. They didn't just want to conquer the ancient kingdom. They wanted to erase it, to ensure that no one would ever know it existed, what it stood for, why the war was fought. They wanted to remove even the possibility that someone might look back at this kingdom and think, perhaps they were right. Perhaps the world would be better if their vision had prevailed. So they created the Void Century. They erased the records. They forbade research. They made the very act of seeking this history a capital crime. They tried to ensure that the ancient kingdom would be forgotten completely. But erasure is never complete. You can destroy documents, but you cannot destroy memory. You can forbid research, but you cannot stop people from wondering. You can create a void century, but the void itself becomes suspicious. Why would 100 years of history need to be erased unless something important happened during that time? The attempt to hide the ancient kingdom only ensured that those who learned of its existence would understand its significance. And there was something else the victors could not erase. The people. Oh, they killed many. The war and its aftermath must have been devastating. But some survived. Some escaped. Some went into hiding, carrying with them the memory of what had been lost. These survivors, these remnants of the ancient kingdom, they became something new. They were no longer citizens of a kingdom. They were bearers of a will. The will to resist. The will to remember. The will to ensure that what their kingdom stood for would not be forgotten, even if the kingdom itself was destroyed. These survivors were the first to carry the D, or perhaps they had always carried it. And it was simply the ancient kingdom's mark, its symbol, its way of identifying those who belonged to its vision. We don't know exactly when or how the D became attached to certain names, but we know it is connected to the ancient kingdom. We know it represents something that the ancient kingdom believed in. We know it is the thing that survived when everything else was destroyed. The D became a badge, a marker, a way for descendants of the ancient kingdom to recognize each other across generations, even when they might not know the full story of where they came from. The D became the thing that the world government could not erase, no matter how hard they tried. Because the D was not written in documents or carved in stone that could be destroyed. The D was carried in blood, passed from parent to child, generation after generation. A genetic memory of a kingdom that once challenged the gods and nearly won. For 800 years, the bearers of D have existed. Sometimes they know what they carry. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they understand the significance of that letter in their name. Sometimes it's just a family initial, nothing more. But the world government knows. The world government has always known. And every time someone with a D in their name rises to prominence, every time they challenge authority or disrupt the status quo or question the way things are, the world government sees not just an individual troublemaker, but the ghost of the ancient kingdom, come back to haunt them once more. This is why the D is feared, not because of the letter itself, but because of what it represents. The memory of a kingdom that was destroyed, but whose will survived. The promise that what was erased might one day be remembered. The threat that the war fought 800 years ago might not actually be over. That the ancient kingdom, though defeated, might yet claim victory through its descendants, through those who carry its will forward into the future. The Void Century was meant to be the end of the ancient kingdom's story. But it was actually the beginning of something else. The beginning of the will of D, the beginning of a legacy that would last not just years or decades, but centuries. The beginning of something that the gods themselves would learn to fear. Because you can destroy a kingdom. You can erase its history. You can kill its people. But you cannot kill a will. You cannot erase an idea. You cannot destroy the determination of those who believe that the world should be free. That will survive the Void Century. It survived 800 years of suppression. And now, in the present day of One Piece, it is stronger than ever. The storm that the world government has been dreading is finally beginning to break. And at the center of that storm are those who carry the D the ancient kingdom fell. Its cities were destroyed. Its people were scattered. Its name was erased. By all rights, the clan of D should have disappeared completely. Become nothing more than a footnote in a history that no one was allowed to read. But something remarkable happened. The clan survived. Not as a unified group, not as an organized resistance, but as something more diffuse, more resilient, more impossible to eliminate. They survived as a bloodline, as a spirit, as an idea that refused to die no matter how many of its bearers were killed. This survival was not easy. We can only imagine what the years immediately following the Void Century were like for those who carried the D hunted, hiding, knowing that their very name marked them for death. The world government, newly established and paranoid about any remnants of the ancient kingdom, would have systematically tried to eliminate them. And many must have died. Children, elderly, those who had nothing to do with the war but whose only crime was bearing a letter in their name. The early years must have been a time of incredible loss and fear. But some survived. Some went deep into hiding. Some changed their names, though the D persisted in their blood even if it did not appear publicly. Some scattered to the far corners of the world, to islands so remote that the world government's reach did not extend there. Some integrated into populations where their names would not stand out, where the D would seem like nothing more than a family initial. And slowly, over generations, the immediate danger passed. The world government could not hunt forever. They had a world to rule, systems to establish, power to consolidate. The hunt for every last bearer of D became impractical. The clan had survived long enough to persist. But survival alone was not enough. Because the clan of D was not just a group of people trying to stay alive. They carried something more. They carried the memory, however fragmented, of what the ancient kingdom represented. They carried the values, however diluted by time, of that lost civilization. And most importantly, they carried the spirit of resistance, the refusal to bow, the inability to accept tyranny quietly. This spirit was not something they chose to carry. It was inherent in them, part of their nature, encoded somehow in that D that marked their names. Over the centuries, the clan of D spread across the world. They appeared in different kingdoms, different islands, different walks of life. There was no central organization, no secret meetings where bearers of D would gather and plot against the world government. The clan was not a conspiracy. It was more like a tendency, a pattern. Wherever bearers of D appeared, things happened. Power structures were challenged. Status quos were disrupted. The powerful were made uncomfortable, not because these individuals planned it, but because something in their nature drove them to it. They laughed. This is perhaps the most important characteristic of the clan of D. They laughed in situations where laughter should not be possible. They faced death with smiles. They confronted overwhelming odds with amusement rather than fear. This laughter was not mockery. It was not cruelty. It was something deeper. It was the laughter of those who understand something that their enemies do not. The laughter of those who know that death is not the end of what they represent. The laughter of those who carry a will that transcends their individual lives. This laughter terrified the world government. Because laughter cannot be controlled. You can control people through fear, through force, through propaganda. But how do you control someone who laughs at death? How do you intimidate someone who treats their execution as a joke? How do you suppress someone whose final act is a smile? This was the power of the clan of D, not physical strength, though many of them possessed that too. But spiritual strength. The strength to face the end with joy rather than terror. The strength to die knowing that what they represented would continue without them. And it did continue. Every time the world government killed a bearer of D, they proved that the D was something worth killing. Every execution confirmed that these people were dangerous. And every execution failed to stop what they represented from spreading. Because the will did not die with the person. It passed on. To children. To students. To those who witnessed the execution and saw that smile, that laughter, that refusal to be afraid. The will spread like a virus, infecting anyone who came into contact with it, making them question, making them wonder, making them think that perhaps the world did not have to be the way the world government insisted it must be. The clan of D became legendary without becoming unified. Stories spread. Tales of individuals with that mysterious D in their name who had done impossible things. Who had challenged the unchallengeable. Who had laughed when they should have wept. These stories were whispered in taverns, passed down in families, remembered by those who valued freedom over safety. And the stories kept the spirit alive, kept the memory of the ancient kingdom alive, even if no one remembered the kingdom's actual name or history. The clan of D became the living embodiment of resistance. Not organized resistance, not planned rebellion, but the constant, nagging, impossible to eliminate resistance of those who simply refuse to accept the world as it is given to them. Chaos. This is what the bearers of D brought with them. Not evil chaos. Not destruction for its own sake. But the chaos of freedom. The chaos that comes when you refuse to follow the script that society has written for you. The chaos of asking questions that are supposed to remain unasked. The chaos of dreaming dreams that are supposed to remain undreamed. The world government wanted order. Perfect, controlled, predictable order. And the clan of D represented the opposite. They represented the beautiful, dangerous, unpredictable chaos of free will. For 800 years, this pattern continued. The world government would rise to power, establish control, create order. And somewhere, somehow, a bearer of D would appear and disrupt that order. Not always successfully. Not always in ways that changed the world. But consistently enough that the pattern could not be ignored. The D was not just a name. It was a promise. A promise that no matter how thorough the erasure, no matter how complete the control, no matter how overwhelming the power of the gods, there would always be someone who refused to bow. Someone who laughed at destiny. Someone who carried the will of the ancient kingdom forward, even if they did not know what kingdom they represented. The clan of D refused to disappear because they represented something fundamental. Something that cannot be erased from human nature. The desire to be free. The need to resist oppression. The instinct to question authority. These things exist in everyone, but in the bearers of D, they exist more strongly, more purely, more impossibly to suppress. The D is not just a bloodline. It is a concentration of the human spirit's most stubborn qualities. Its refusal to submit. Its insistence on finding joy even in suffering. Its ability to laugh at death itself. And now, 800 years later, the clan of D is stronger than ever. Not more numerous necessarily, but more concentrated, more significant, more positioned to finally complete what the ancient kingdom started. The bearers of D are gathering. They're finding each other. They are beginning to understand what they represent. And the world government, which thought it had successfully buried the threat of the D under 8 centuries of control, is realizing that they buried nothing. They merely delayed. The storm is coming. The chaos is returning. And at its center are those who carry the D, those who laugh at destiny, those who refuse to disappear. The clan of D, alive and dangerous, ready to finish what was started so long ago. If you were to observe the bearers of D throughout history, if you could step back and look at the pattern of their lives, their choices, their deaths, you would begin to see something. Not a formula, but a tendency. Not a rule, but a pattern. These individuals, scattered across time and geography, separated by culture and circumstance, nevertheless share certain characteristics. These characteristics are not absolute. Not every bearer of D displays all of them, but the pattern is strong enough to be undeniable. There is something that makes bearers of D different from ordinary people. Something that marks them, that sets them apart, that makes the world government right to fear them. First and most notably, they smile in the face of death. Not all people facing execution are afraid, of course. Some are brave. Some are resigned. Some are defiant. But the bearers of D do something stranger. They smile. Not a forced smile. Not a bitter smile. But a genuine expression of something that looks almost like joy. They face their end as if it were not an end at all. As if death were simply another experience, another adventure, another step in a journey that continues beyond their individual existence. This smile is not ignorance. They understand what is happening. They know they are about to die. But somehow, that knowledge does not diminish their joy. If anything, it seems to increase it. Why do they smile? What do they understand that others do not? Perhaps it is this. They understand that they are part of something larger than themselves. That their individual life is just one expression of a will that extends far beyond them. That their death, while ending their personal story, does not end what they represent. The will continues. The dream persists. And knowing this, truly understanding it, makes death less frightening. Not painless. Not welcome necessarily. But acceptable. Even in some strange way appropriate. They die smiling because they die knowing that they have lived according to their nature. That they have carried the will forward, even if only by a small amount. That they have added their verse to a poem that has been written across 800 years. Second, they possess a natural resistance to authority. This is not the same as rebelliousness for its own sake. Many people rebel against authority out of anger or frustration or a desire for power themselves. But the bearers of D are different. Their resistance comes from something deeper. It comes from an inability to accept that authority is legitimate simply because it exists. They look at kings and see not divinely appointed rulers, but people who happen to accumulate power. They look at the world government and see not the natural order of things, but a system maintained by force and lies. They look at the celestial dragons who call themselves gods and see not beings worthy of worship but humans who have convinced themselves of their own superiority. This resistance is not always conscious. Some bearers of D do not set out to challenge authority. They simply cannot help it. When they see someone being oppressed, they intervene. When they see an unjust rule, they break it. When they see someone claiming authority they have not earned, they question it. This tendency gets them into trouble. It makes them enemies of powerful people. It shortens their lives often, but they cannot stop doing it any more than they can stop breathing. The resistance to authority is fundamental to their nature. It is part of what makes them bearers of D3. They have the capacity to disrupt the balance of the world. This is perhaps the characteristic that the world government fears most. Individual bearers of D may not be the strongest fighters or the smartest strategists, but they have an ability to change things, to create ripples that spread far beyond what their individual power should allow. Roger was not the strongest pirate in history, but his actions created the Great Pirate Era. Luffy is not the most powerful individual in the world, but his presence changes every situation he enters. Dragon leads a revolution that threatens the entire world government. This is not coincidence. This is part of what the D represents. The ability to be a catalyst. To be the stone that starts the avalanche. To be the spark that lights the fire. Why do they have this ability? Perhaps because they do not think in terms of maintaining stability. Most powerful people, even those who call themselves revolutionaries, ultimately want to create a new order. A different system, perhaps, but still a system. Still stability. Still control. But the bearers of D are not interested in creating new orders. They are interested in freedom, in chaos, in a world where things can change, where nothing is fixed, where possibility remains open. And this fundamental orientation makes them dangerous to any established power, because you cannot co-opt someone who does not want power. You cannot negotiate with someone who does not want a seat at the table. You cannot control someone whose very nature is oriented toward disruption rather than order. Fourth, they possess powerful wills, not desire for power, not ambition in the conventional sense, but will. The ability to continue when continuing seems impossible. The refusal to give up even when giving up would be rational. The capacity to push beyond what should be their limits. This will manifest differently in different individuals. In some, it is physical endurance. In others, it is mental resilience. In still others, it is the ability to inspire that same will in those around them. But it is always there. A core of determination that cannot be broken, cannot be bent, cannot be compromised. This will is what allows bearers of D to face death with a smile. This will is what makes them natural enemies of God. Because gods demand submission, and the bearers of D are fundamentally incapable of submitting. And then there is something else. Something rarer but still significant. Some bearers of D possess what is called the voice of all things. The ability to hear the world in a way that others cannot. To understand the voices of sea kings, of mysterious objects, of the very fabric of reality itself. Not all bearers of D have this ability. Perhaps only a few. But those who do seem to share something with Roger, who had it, and with Luffy, who is developing it. This voice is not just a supernatural sense. It is a connection. A link to something fundamental about the world. Perhaps a link to the ancient kingdom and whatever knowledge or power it possessed. Perhaps a link to the true history of the world, resonating at a frequency that only certain individuals can perceive. These characteristics, taken together, create individuals who are fundamentally incompatible with the world government has created. The world government needs people to be afraid, to accept authority, to maintain the status quo, to suppress their own will in favor of the will of their betters. The bearers of D are the opposite of all of this. They are not afraid. They do not accept authority. They disrupt the status quo simply by existing, and their will cannot be suppressed. This is why they are called natural enemies of God, not because they actively seek to destroy the world government, though some do, but because their very nature, their fundamental being, is incompatible with the kind of world that gods require to maintain their divinity. And yet, they are not all the same. This is important to understand. The D does not create identical people. It does not override individual personality or choice. Two bearers of D can be very different from each other. They can have different goals, different methods, different understandings of what their D means. Some are heroes. Some are villains. Some are revolutionaries. Some serve in the Marines. Some become scholars. Some become pirates. The D does not dictate a single path. It only provides a tendency, a nature that inclines toward certain things: freedom, laughter, resistance, will, disruption. But how these tendencies manifest, what form they take, what purpose they serve, that varies with each individual. This is what makes the clan of D so impossible to eliminate. You cannot predict them. You cannot control them. You cannot even properly define them. They are not a single thing but a category, a type, a pattern that repeats with variations. The world government has been trying for 800 years to understand them well enough to stop them. And they have failed. Because the D is not something you can analyze and neutralize. It is something fundamental to human nature itself, concentrated in certain individuals, expressed through them in ways both predictable and surprising. It is the spirit of freedom made flesh. And freedom, by its very nature, cannot be controlled. For 800 years, the bearers of D existed without fully understanding what they carried. They knew the letter was significant. Some families passed down stories, fragments of knowledge about its importance. But the complete truth, the full history of what the D meant and where it came from remained hidden, buried in the void century, carved into poneglyphs that most people could not read, waiting on an island at the end of the Grand Line that no one could reach. The bearers of D lived and died carrying something they did not fully understand. A will they inherited but whose origin remained mysterious. Until one man reached the end. One man sailed the entire Grand Line, collected all 4 road poneglyphs, found the final island, and learned the truth. His name was Galda Roger, the Pirate King, the man who conquered the Grand Line when no one else could. The man who laughed at what he found there. The man who became, in some sense, the first bearer of D to truly understand what he carried. And that understanding changed everything. Roger's journey was not undertaken in pursuit of the D's meaning, at least not initially. He wanted to be free. He wanted adventure. He wanted to sail where no one else had sailed and see what no one else had seen. These are natural desires for someone who carries the D, the pursuit of freedom, the love of adventure, the refusal to accept that anything is truly unreachable. Roger embodied these qualities completely. He assembled a crew of similarly minded individuals. He challenged the strongest powers in the world. He did the impossible not because he had to, but because being told something was impossible made him want to do it more. But as Roger's journey progressed, it became about something more. He began to encounter the poneglyphs. He learned about the Void Century. He discovered that there was a history, a true history, that the world government had hidden. And Roger realized that reaching the end of the Grand Line was not just about personal achievement. It was about learning what had been erased. About understanding the truth that the world was not allowed to know. Roger had Odin with him, who could read the poneglyphs. Roger had the determination to collect all 4 road poneglyphs despite the difficulty. Roger had the strength to overcome every obstacle between him and Laughtail. And so he reached it. He stood on the final island. And he learned everything. What did Roger learn on Laughtail? We don't know the complete details. But we know some things. He learned about the ancient kingdom. He learned about Joy Boy. He learned about the war that had been fought 800 years ago. He learned why the world government had erased the Void Century. He learned what the D meant, what it represented, where it came from. He learned the true history of the world, the history that had been hidden so carefully for so long. And when he learned it, he laughed. He laughed so hard that he decided to rename the island itself. What had been called the last island became Laughtail, the tale that makes you laugh. But why did Roger laugh? What could be funny about the tragedy of the Void Century? About the destruction of the ancient kingdom? About 800 years of lies and erasure? Perhaps the laughter was not about humor. Perhaps it was about irony. The irony that the world government had worked so hard to hide something that, once revealed, would make their position untenable. The irony that all their efforts to erase the D had only made it more significant. The irony that the very act of trying to control history had created the conditions for that history to eventually be revealed. Or perhaps the laughter was about recognition. Roger saw Joy Boy's story and recognized himself in it. Recognized the same spirit, the same will, the same refusal to accept the world as it was given. And in that recognition, he found not tragedy but connection. A link across 800 years to someone who understood what it meant to carry the D. But Roger also understood something else when he reached Laughtail. He understood timing. He learned that there was a prophecy, a prediction, a sense that someone would come to complete what Joy Boy had started. But Roger realized that he was not that person. He was too early. The world was not ready. The pieces were not in place. Whatever needed to happen to truly challenge the world government, to reveal the truth, to complete the mission of the D, required conditions that did not yet exist. Roger had the knowledge. He had the will. He had proven himself capable of anything. But he did not have time. Roger was dying. A disease was killing him, slowly but certainly. He did not have years to prepare the world. He did not have time to assemble allies, to build movements, to create the conditions necessary for revolution. He could force it. He could use what he knew, his fame, his power, to try to tear down the world government immediately. But that would fail. It would be premature. It would waste the knowledge he had gained. And worse, it would betray what he had learned on Laughtail. Because the truth, whatever it was, required someone specific to reveal it. Someone who would come later. Someone Roger knew he would never meet, but whom he could help prepare the way for. So Roger made a choice. A choice that would echo for decades after his death. He decided to start something. To create conditions that would eventually lead to the right person at the right time, doing the right thing. He turned himself into the Marines. He allowed himself to be captured. He accepted his execution. But before he died, he spoke. He told the world about his treasure. about the One Piece. He told them it was real. He told them it was waiting at the end of the Grand Line. He told them to go find it. And with those words, spoken moments before his death, Roger started the Great Pirate Era. The world government thought they were winning when they executed Roger. They thought they were eliminating the greatest threat to their rule. They thought his death would discourage others, would prove that even the Pirate King could not escape justice. But Roger turned his execution into something else, into a beginning rather than an ending. By telling the world about the One Piece, by inspiring countless people to set sail, by creating an era of piracy and adventure and freedom-seeking, Roger ensured that eventually someone would follow his path. Eventually someone would reach Laugh Tale. Eventually someone would learn what he had learned. And that someone, Roger believed, would be the one who could actually do something about it. Roger died smiling. Of course he did. He was a bearer of D. He faced death with the knowledge that he had done what he could, that he had carried the will forward, that he had set in motion events that would eventually lead to the completion of what Joy Boy had started 800 years ago. Roger's last words, his final act, was not defiance or bravado. It was faith. Faith that the will would continue. Faith that someone would come. Faith that the truth would eventually be revealed and the world would change because of it. Roger died knowing that he was not the end of anything. He was a middle chapter. A link in a chain extending from the void century to some future that he would never see, but whose arrival he had made more certain. And Roger was right. His death did start something. The Great Pirate Era brought thousands of people to the seas. Most of them were just seeking treasure or adventure. But among them were others. Those who carried the D, those who, knowingly or unknowingly, were walking the same path Roger had walked. Moving toward the same destination. Preparing to learn the same truth. Roger could not complete the mission himself. And Roger was right. His death did start something. The Great Pirate Era brought thousands of people to the seas. Most of them were just seeking treasure or adventure. But among them were others. Those who carried the D, those who, knowingly or unknowingly, were walking the same path Roger had walked. Moving toward the same destination. Preparing to learn the same truth. Roger could not complete the mission himself. But he ensured that someone else would. He was the first to reach the truth. But he would not be the last. And the next person to reach Laugh Tale, the next person to learn what Roger learned, might be the one who could actually finish what the bearers of D had been working toward for 800 years. Roger's legacy is not just the Great Pirate Era. It is not just the inspiration he provided to countless pirates. His legacy is understanding. He proved that the truth could be reached. He proved that the secrets of the Void Century could be uncovered. He proved that bearers of D, if they were determined enough, strong enough, brave enough, could learn what they were really carrying. And that proof, that example, changed everything. Before Roger, the D was a mystery even to those who bore it. After Roger, it became a goal, a destination, something that could be understood if you were willing to sail far enough, fight hard enough, search long enough. Roger transformed the will of D from an inherited burden into an achievable quest. And in doing so, he brought the world one step closer to the dawn that had been promised 800 years ago. There is a moment that repeats throughout the history of the bearers of DA, moment that occurs when they face their end. When death is certain and escape is impossible. When the final second of their life is about to arrive. In that moment, when most people would feel fear or despair or anger, the bearers of D do something extraordinary. They smile. Not all of them, not every single one, but enough that it becomes a pattern, a signature, a mark of what they are and what they represent. The smile before death, the final expression of a will that cannot be broken even by the end of existence itself. Gul de Roger smiled as he was executed, surrounded by Marines, watched by crowds who came to see the Pirate King die, knowing that in moments his life would end. And in that moment he smiled. Not a bitter smile, not a forced smile, but a genuine expression of something that looked like joy. His last words inspired a generation. His last smile proved that even death could not diminish what he carried, that the will persisted beyond the individual, that ending his life did not end what he represented. Roger's smile was not defiance, though it was defiant. It was not mockery, though it mocked the world government's belief that his execution would discourage others. It was something purer. It was the expression of someone who had lived fully, who had achieved what he set out to achieve, who understood that his death was not an ending but a transition. The will would continue. The dream would persist. And knowing this, truly understanding it, allowed him to face his end with joy. Portgas d'Ace smiled as he died, not at his execution, which he escaped, but in his FNL moments, after taking a blow meant for his brother, after sacrificing himself to save Luffy. As his life faded, as he lay dying in Luffy's arms, Ace smiled. He thanked everyone for loving him despite the cursed blood he carried as Roger's son. He expressed gratitude for the life he had lived. He died at peace, surrounded by those who cared for him, knowing that his death had meaning, that it had saved someone important, that it was, in its own tragic way, a good death. Ace's smile was acceptance, not of defeat, but of fate, not of meaninglessness, but of purpose. He died carrying the D, and like Roger before him, he died proving that death could not break the spirit of those who bore it. Jaguar de Sol laughed as he was frozen. A giant marine who had defected to protect a child, who had chosen to defy his orders, his government, his entire world to save Robin. Kuzan, his friend, was forced to execute him. Ice spread across Sol's body. He was dying slowly, freezing solid, experiencing what must have been excruciating pain. And in those final moments, as the ice consumed him, Sol laughed. A loud, booming laugh that echoed across O'Hara as it burned. He told Robin to live, to survive, to carry forward the knowledge that O'Hara had tried to preserve. And he laughed, because even in death, even in the failure of his mission, even as everything he tried to protect was being destroyed, Sol understood something. The will would continue. Robin would survive. The knowledge would persist. His death was not the end. It was just another chapter in a story that stretched back 800 years and would continue long after he was gone. Why do they smile? Why do they laugh? What do the bearers of D understand about death that allows them to face it this way? Perhaps it is this. They understand that they are not just individuals. They are vessels, carriers of something larger than themselves. The will of D does not belong to them personally. They are simply the current expression of it. And when they die, the will does not die with them. It finds another vessel, another carrier, another person who will continue what they started. This understanding removes the sting from death. Not the pain, perhaps. Not the sadness of leaving loved ones behind. But the fear, the despair, the sense that death represents a final, absolute ending. For the bearers of D, death is a transition. The will moves on. The dream persists. And knowing this makes even death bearable. Even in some strange way acceptable. This smile terrifies the world government. They can handle rebels. They can handle people who fight back, who resist, who try to escape. Those people are afraid of death, and fear can be weaponized. You can use the threat of death to control them, to make them compromise, to break their spirit. But how do you control people who are not afraid to die? How do you threaten someone who faces execution with a smile? How do you break the spirit of someone whose final act is laughter? The smile before death is not just a personal expression. It is a weapon. It is proof that the world government's ultimate power, the power to end lives, is not as absolute as they would like to believe. Because you can end a life, but you cannot end what that life represents. You cannot kill a will. You cannot execute an idea. You cannot destroy a dream that extends beyond any individual dreamer. Every public execution of a bearer of D becomes a problem for the world government. They want executions to be warnings, to be deterrents, to show the world what happens to those who defy the gods. But when the person being executed smiles, when they laugh, when they face death with joy instead of fear, the message changes. The execution stops being a warning and becomes an inspiration. It proves that what the person believed in was worth dying for. It demonstrates a level of commitment that mere words could never convey. It shows anyone watching that death is not the worst thing that can happen. That there are things worth dying for. Ideas worth sacrificing yourself to preserve. And that realization is dangerous to any system built on fear and control. The smile before death is also a message to other bearers of DA, confirmation that they are on the right path. That what they carry is real and important and worth any sacrifice. When Roger smiled at his execution, every bearer of D who heard about it understood something. That Roger had found what he was looking for. That he had learned the truth. That his death was not a defeat, but a deliberate choice made with full knowledge of what it meant. When Ace smiled as he died, Luffy understood, eventually, that his brother's death had meaning. That it was not a waste, but a sacrifice made willingly and at peace. The smile is a communication across time and space. It tells other bearers of D that they are not alone. That others have walked this path before. That the will is real and worth carrying forward. And there is something else about the smile. Something more subtle, but perhaps more important. The smile is joy. Real, genuine joy. Not forced. Not fake. Not a mask over fear. The bearers of D, in their final moments, are experiencing something that looks like happiness. And this suggests something profound about what they understand. They understand that they have lived well, that they have been true to themselves, that they have carried the will forward, even if only by a small amount. And understanding this, truly feeling it, creates joy. Even in death, even at the end, even when everything is being taken away. There is joy in having lived according to your nature, in having been free, in having refused to bow, in having laughed when you were supposed to be afraid. This is the power of the smile before death. It is not denial. It is not delusion. It is not ignorance of what is happening. It is understanding. Deep, complete understanding of what it means to carry the D, understanding that you are part of something that began long before. You were born and will continue long after you die. Understanding that your individual life, while important, is just one expression of a will that transcends any single person. understanding that living according to that will, being true to that nature, is worth any price, even the ultimate price, even death itself. And so they smile, and so they laugh, and so they die in a way that proves, beyond any doubt, that the will of D cannot be killed. Not by execution, not by erasure, not by 800 years of suppression. The will lives on, in the smile, in the laughter, in the joy that persists even at the very end. The will of D is not a single thing. It does not create identical people walking identical paths toward identical goals. This is crucial to understand. The D represents a nature, a tendency, a set of characteristics. But how those characteristics manifest, what form they take, what purposes they serve, varies tremendously from person to person. The bearers of D are united by certain shared traits, yes, but they are separated by everything else, by their choices, by their circumstances, by their individual interpretations of what their D means and what they should do with it. The result is a fascinating divergence. Multiple paths, all carried by people with the same letter in their name, all heading in completely different directions. Consider Monkey D. Garp, the hero of the Marines, a man who has devoted his entire life to serving the organization that enforces the world government's will. Garp is powerful, perhaps as powerful as Roger ever was. He has captured countless pirates. He has fought for the Marines in wars and conflicts that shaped the world. He has upheld the law. He has maintained order. And yet, he carries the D. He possesses all the characteristics that make bearers of D dangerous to the world government: the refusal to bow, the resistance to absolute authority, the tendency to laugh when he should be serious, the powerful will that cannot be broken. Garp's path shows that the D does not automatically make you a revolutionary or a pirate. It does not force you into opposition against the world government. Garp chose to serve the Marines. And yet, even in service, his nature as a bearer of D manifests. He refused promotion to admiral multiple times because becoming an admiral would require him to serve the celestial dragons directly, and Garp cannot bring himself to bow to those who call themselves gods. He has protected those he cares about, even when doing so contradicted his duty. He allowed Roger's son to be raised by someone Garp trusted, rather than ensuring the boy was eliminated as the world government wanted. Garp serves the Marines, yes, but he serves them on his own terms. He bends the rules constantly. He refuses to compromise his own sense of justice even when ordered to. He is a Marine who carries the D, and that combination creates a fascinating contradiction. A man dedicated to order who possesses a nature oriented toward freedom. Then there is Monkey D. Dragon, Garp's son, a man who took the opposite path from his father. Dragon leads the Revolutionary Army. He fights directly against the world government. He seeks to overthrow the celestial dragons and tear down the system that has ruled for 800 years. Where Garp chose to work within the system, Dragon chose to destroy it. Where Garp became a hero to the world government, Dragon became its most wanted criminal. And yet, they are both bearers of D. They both possess the same fundamental nature. The difference is not in what they are, but in what they chose to do with it. Dragon's path is perhaps the most obvious expression of what the D represents: revolution, resistance, the active pursuit of overthrowing tyranny. But even Dragon's revolution is interesting because it is not about personal power. Dragon does not seem to want to rule the world himself. He does not seek to replace the world government with himself as its head. He seeks liberation, Freedom. A world where people can live without the boot of false gods on their necks. This is the D expressing itself through political action, through organized resistance, through the patient, careful work of building a movement strong enough to challenge the most powerful organization in the world. And then there is Rox D. Zebek, a name spoken with fear by those old enough to remember him. The captain of the Rox Pirates, a crew so powerful, so dangerous, that it took both Garp and Roger working together to stop them. Rox was a bearer of D, but his path was neither service like Garp's nor revolution like Dragon's. Rox wanted chaos, power. He wanted to destroy the celestial dragons, yes, but not to liberate anyone. He wanted to destroy them so he could take their place, or perhaps so that no one could take their place, so that the world would descend into pure chaos with the strong taking what they wanted and the weak suffering. Rox represents the dark potential of the D, the possibility that the characteristics associated with it can be turned towards selfish ends. The refusal to bow to authority can become a refusal to respect anything. The tendency toward chaos can become destructive rather than liberating. The powerful will can be used to dominate rather than to free. Rox was dangerous not just to the world government, but to everyone. His defeat, his erasure from official history, was perhaps the one time the world government's suppression of information served a genuine purpose. Because Rox represented what happens when the D is divorced from the purpose it was meant to serve. When it becomes about personal power rather than collective liberation. Trafalgar D. Waterlaw offers yet another path. A doctor, a pirate, a man driven by personal revenge but gradually transformed by his alliance with Luffy into something more. Law's path is quieter than Dragon's revolution or Rox's chaos. Law seeks truth, understanding. He wants to know what the D means, why he carries it, what happened during the Void Century. Law's journey is intellectual as much as physical. He is not trying to overthrow the world government out of idealistic commitment to freedom. He is trying to understand the system well enough to dismantle it, to learn its secrets, to use knowledge as a weapon against those who have maintained power through ignorance. Law represents the scholarly aspect of the D, the pursuit of forbidden knowledge. The refusal to accept that some things should not be known. In a world where researching the Void Century is a capital crime, Law's curiosity is itself a form of rebellion. His desire to understand is an expression of his D nature, because the D is fundamentally about refusing to accept the world as it is given to you, and that refusal extends to refusing to accept ignorance. Refusing to stop asking questions. Refusing to believe that some truths should remain hidden. Law may not be the most obvious revolutionary, but his pursuit of understanding is revolutionary in its own right. And Jaguar de Saul showed yet another way. A giant who served in the Marines, like Garp, but when ordered to participate in the destruction of O'Hara, when commanded to help erase an island full of scholars whose only crime was seeking knowledge, Saul defected. He chose to save a child rather than follow orders. He chose to die protecting that child rather than living as a tool of the world government's erasure. Saul's path was short. He was not a great conqueror or revolutionary leader, but his choice mattered. His decision to protect Robin ensured that the knowledge of how to read poneglyphs would survive. His sacrifice created ripples that would eventually contribute to the truth being revealed. Saul represents the personal aspect of the D, the moment-to-moment choices that define who you are. He was not fighting a grand battle for liberation. He was simply faced with a choice. Follow orders and let an innocent child die, or save her and die yourself. And his nature as a bearer of D meant he could not choose the first option. Could not prioritize his own survival over doing what was right. Saul died for a single child, and that single choice has had consequences that extend decades into the future. Because the D is not just about grand gestures. It is about being unable to compromise when it matters. About choosing freedom and justice and life, even when the cost is your own death. These many paths show something important. The D is not a destiny that determines your every action. It is a nature that influences your choices. Garp, dragon, rocks, law, they all carried the same D. They all possessed the same fundamental characteristics. But they chose different paths, made different decisions, pursued different goals. And yet, even in their differences, patterns emerge. None of them could fully bow to the world government's absolute authority. None of them could accept a world based on lies and erasure. None of them could suppress their own will in favor of someone else's command. The D made them all, in their different ways, problems for the established order, disruptions to the status quo, people who, whether through direct opposition or subtle, resistance or personal choice, refused to fit into the world government wanted to create. This diversity is actually the D's greatest strength, because it means the world government cannot predict how it will manifest, cannot develop a single strategy to eliminate it, cannot focus on one type of bearer of D and feel safe. The D appears in Marines and pirates and revolutionaries and scholars. It drives people toward different goals, different methods, different understandings of what their nature means. And this unpredictability, this diversity of expression, means that no matter how many bearers of D the world government eliminates, others will appear in unexpected places, pursuing unexpected paths, creating unexpected problems. The many paths of D ensure that the will never becomes static, never becomes predictable, never becomes something that can be fully controlled or suppressed. The will adapts. It finds new expressions. It persists through diversity. And that persistence, across 800 years in countless different individuals and infinite variations of the same fundamental nature, is what makes it truly unstoppable. Among all the bearers of D, among all those who carry that mysterious letter and the will it represents, there is one who seems different, one who does not fit the pattern, one whose very existence raises questions about what the D truly means and whether it manifests the same way in everyone. His name is Marshall de Teach. The world knows him as Blackbeard. And he is, in many ways, the exception that proves the rule. Or perhaps the exception that breaks it entirely. Blackbeard carries the D. There is no question about that. He possesses some of the characteristics associated with it. He is powerful. He has ambition. He cannot be controlled by others. He pursues his goals with single-minded determination. But something is wrong. Something is off. Because when you look at Blackbeard, when you observe his actions and his choices and his nature, he does not seem like the other bearers of D. He seems like something else. Something darker. Something that wears the D but does not truly carry its will. First and most obvious, Blackbeard does not smile at death. The bearers of D face their ends with laughter, with acceptance, with joy. They die knowing that the will continues. But Blackbeard fears death. Deeply, profoundly. When faced with Whitebeard's fury, when inches from death, Blackbeard begged. He pleaded. He showed cowardice that no other bearer of D has displayed. This is not just a personality trait. This is fundamental. The smile before death is one of the most consistent characteristics of the D. It is a mark of understanding that you are part of something larger than yourself, that your death does not end what you represent. But Blackbeard does not have this understanding. To him, death is the end, final and terrible and to be avoided at all costs, even at the cost of dignity. Second, Blackbeard does not seem to possess the natural resistance to tyranny that defines other bearers of D. He does not fight for freedom. He does not seek to liberate anyone. He does not challenge the gods because he believes they should not be gods. He challenges them because he wants to be a god himself. Blackbeard seeks power for its own sake. He wants to rule, to dominate, to become the strongest. His goals are entirely selfish. Where other bearers of D disrupt the status quo because their nature compels them to, Blackbeard disrupts it because he wants to replace it with his own dominance. This is a crucial difference. The D is supposed to be about liberation, about freedom, about refusing to let anyone, including yourself, become a tyrant. But Blackbeard seems to have no such compunction. He would happily become the tyrant if given the chance. Third, Blackbeard killed his own crewmate to obtain a devil fruit. He betrayed Whitebeard, the man who took him in and gave him a home. He uses people as tools and discards them when they are no longer useful. This is behavior that seems fundamentally at odds with what the D represents. Other bearers of D inspire loyalty. They make allies. They create bonds that last beyond death. Roger's crew still speaks of him with reverence decades after his execution. Luffy's crew would die for him without hesitation. Even Rox, for all his darkness, commanded a crew of incredibly powerful individuals who chose to follow him. But Blackbeard's crew follows him out of shared greed and ambition, out of the calculation that aligning with him serves their interests. There is no deeper loyalty, no real bond, just temporary alliance between people united by selfishness. So what is Blackbeard? How can he carry the D and yet be so different from everyone else who bears it? There are several possibilities. The first is that Blackbeard is proof that the D is not deterministic, that it provides tendencies but does not eliminate free will, that someone can carry the D and still choose to betray what it represents, to use the strength it provides for selfish ends rather than for liberation. This would make Blackbeard a warning, a demonstration that carrying the D is not enough, that you must also choose to honor what it represents, that the will can be corrupted if the individual bearing it is corrupt. The second possibility is darker. Perhaps Blackbeard is not truly a bearer of D at all. Perhaps he stole the name somehow. Or perhaps he represents a branch of the D that split off long ago. A bloodline that carried the letter but lost the will. That kept the marking but forgot the purpose. During the Void Century, during the fall of the Ancient Kingdom, there must have been betrayals. There must have been those who chose to side with the 20 kings. Perhaps Blackbeard's lineage descends from one of those traitors. Perhaps he carries the D, but also carries the will of those who betrayed the Ancient Kingdom, making him a bearer of D in name, but an enemy of everything the D stands for in spirit. The third possibility is the strangest. There are theories that Blackbeard is somehow multiple people, that his body contains more than one soul or consciousness. This would explain his ability to possess multiple devil fruits when everyone else can only have one. It might also explain his personality. Perhaps one of the souls is a true bearer of D, perhaps another is something else. Something that does not carry the will. And the conflict between these multiple beings creates the contradictions we see in Blackbeard's nature. This is speculation, of course, but it would explain why Blackbeard seems so fundamentally different from every other bearer of D, because he might not be a single person at all. Regardless of the explanation, Blackbeard serves an important narrative purpose. He is the shadow of the D, the demonstration of what happens when the strength and determination associated with the D are turned towards selfish ends. Where Luffy represents the ideal expression of the D, Blackbeard represents its corruption. Where Luffy frees people, Blackbeard enslaves them. Where Luffy makes genuine friends, Blackbeard uses people. Where Luffy faces danger with a smile, Blackbeard begs for his life. They are opposites, and yet they both carry the D. This opposition suggests that the final conflict of One Piece might not be between Luffy and the world government alone. It might also be between Luffy and Blackbeard, between two bearers of D with completely different understandings of what that D means and what should be done with it. Blackbeard also reveals something about the D that other bearers do not. He reveals that the D is dangerous not just to the world government, but to everyone. That the characteristics it provides, the strength, the determination, the inability to be controlled, these things can be used for evil as easily as for good. The world government calls bearers of D the natural enemies of God, but perhaps they should also be considered potential enemies of freedom itself, because power without purpose is just power. Strength without justice is just strength. And the D provides these things, but does not guarantee that they will be used well. This makes Blackbeard's existence deeply troubling for those who believe in the D, because if Blackbeard can carry the D and still be a monster, if he can possess all the strength associated with it and none of the wisdom, then what does that say about the D itself? Is it truly a force for liberation? Or is it just power neutral in itself, shaped entirely by the person who wields it? These questions do not have easy answers, but Blackbeard forces us to ask them. He is the exception, the one who does not fit the pattern, the bearer of D who seems to lack the will, and his existence suggests that carrying the D is not enough, that you must also choose to honor what it represents, that the will must be embraced, not just inherited, that the D creates potential but does not guarantee destiny. And this makes the eventual confrontation between Luffy and Blackbeard all the more significant, because it will not just be a battle between two powerful pirates. It will be a battle between two interpretations of what the D means, between liberation and domination, between selflessness and selfishness, between the true heir of the D's will and the one who carries the name but betrays the purpose. Blackbeard is the exception, but perhaps he is the exception that defines what the D truly is by showing what it is not. And when he falls, as he likely will eventually, it will not just be his defeat. It will be the defeat of the idea that the D can be corrupted. The proof that ultimately, regardless of individual choices, the will of D is oriented toward freedom. And those who betray that will eventually face those who embrace it. The exception cannot stand forever. Eventually, the rule reasserts itself, and the will, the true will, prevails. The will of D is not bound by blood alone. This is perhaps the most important thing to understand about it. Yes, it passes through families, through generations, from parent to child, maintaining its presence through genetic inheritance. But it is more than just biology, more than just a letter that appears in family names because ancestors carried it. The D represents something deeper, a will that transcends the individual. A dream that can be inherited by anyone who carries the same spirit, regardless of whether they share blood with previous bearers. Consider the relationship between Galdai Roger and Kazuki Odin. Odin did not carry the D, his name was Kazuki Odin. And he was from Wano, a land with its own ancient history separate from the lineage of D-bearers. But Odin sailed with Roger. He learned to read the poneglyphs. He discovered the truth of the Void Century alongside Roger. He laughed at Laugh-Tale just as Roger did. And when Odin died, when he was executed by Kaido and Orochi, he died smiling. He died joking. He died with the same spirit that defines the bearers of D, even though he was not one by blood. This suggests that the D is not just genetic. It is ideological, spiritual. It is a way of being in the world that can be adopted, learned, absorbed by those who spend time around its bearers. Odin caught the D, not literally, of course. His name never gained that letter, but his spirit became aligned with what the D represents. He became, in every way that mattered, a bearer of the will, even though he did not bear the name. And when he died, he passed that will forward to his children, to his retainers, to the people of Wano who waited 20 years for his prophecy to be fulfilled. The will moved through Odin even though the blood did not. This principle extends further. The will of D passes through inspiration, through example, through the actions of those who carry it affecting those who witness it. When Roger started the Great Pirate Era, he inspired countless people to set sail. Most of them did not carry the D, most of them were just seeking adventure or treasure. But among them were those who caught something deeper, who understood that what Roger represented was not just freedom to sail, but freedom itself. Freedom from the world government's control. Freedom from the idea that your birth determines your destiny. Freedom to dream impossible dreams and pursue them regardless of what anyone says. These people, inspired by Roger, became carriers of the will even though they did not carry the name. They pursued the same goals, challenged the same powers, lived with the same spirit of defiance and joy and refusal to bow. The D spread through them not as a genetic marker, but as an idea. A contagious idea. A viral concept that infected anyone who truly understood what it meant. This is how the will has survived for 800 years despite the world government's best efforts to eliminate it. You cannot kill an idea by killing its bearers, because the bearers create more bearers simply by living according to their nature. Luffy demonstrates this principle perfectly. Everywhere he goes, he changes people. Not by trying to. Not by preaching or teaching or deliberately spreading the will, but simply by being himself. By living according to his nature as a bearer of D, by freeing those who are enslaved. By challenging those who abuse power. By laughing in the face of impossible odds. By refusing to let anyone tell him what he can or cannot do. People see Luffy do these things, and something changes in them. They begin to believe that freedom is possible, that resistance can succeed, that the world does not have to be the way it has always been. Look at Luffy's crew. None of them except Luffy carry the D by blood, but all of them carry the will. Zoro refuses to bow to anyone. Nami fights for freedom from the slavery of her past. Usopp faces his fears and stands up anyway. Sanji will not let others starve. Chopper challenges the idea that being different makes you a monster. Robin pursues forbidden knowledge. Frankie builds ships of freedom. Brook persists beyond death. Jinbe breaks the barriers between species. Each of them, in their own way, expresses the same will that defines the D. They caught it from Luffy. Or perhaps they already had it, and Luffy simply helped them realize it. This is how the will passes on. not just through blood, though blood helps, but through inspiration, through example, through the simple act of living according to the principles that the D represents: freedom, joy, resistance to tyranny, refusal to accept the world as it is given. These are not genetic traits. They are choices, attitudes, ways of being that anyone can adopt if they are brave enough. The D is concentrated in certain bloodlines, yes, but it exists potentially in everyone, waiting to be awakened, waiting for someone to demonstrate that it is possible to live this way, waiting for a bearer of D to show them how. This is why Roger's death was not a defeat for the D, why Ace's death, tragic as it was, did not diminish the will. Why every execution of a bearer of D, rather than suppressing the will, spreads it further. Because the will is not contained in bodies. It is contained in ideas, in examples, in the memory of those who lived according to their nature and died refusing to compromise it. These memories persist. These examples inspire. These ideas spread. And each person who adopts them, who lives according to them, who carries them forward in their own way, becomes a bearer of the will even if they do not bear the name. The D is a lineage, yes, but it is also a movement, a wave, a tide that has been building for 800 years and is finally approaching its crest. The original bearers of D, those who survived the fall of the ancient kingdom, were few in number. But over centuries, through blood and inspiration, through genetic inheritance and ideological transmission, the will has spread. It exists now in more people than ever before. Some know they carry it, some do not. But all of them, in their own ways, are working toward the same goal. The goal that the ancient kingdom died pursuing. The goal that Joy Boy could not achieve. The goal that Roger understood but could not complete. The liberation of the world from the control of false gods. This is the true power of the D, not that it creates strong individuals. Not that it marks certain families, but that it spreads. That it perpetuates itself, that it turns those who encounter it into carriers themselves. The will passes on, from Roger to those he inspired, from Ace to those who knew him, from Luffy to everyone he meets, from every bearer of D to everyone around them. The will cannot be contained, cannot be stopped, cannot be eliminated by killing its named bearers. Because the will exists beyond them, in everyone who has ever laughed at death, in everyone who has ever refused to bow, in everyone who has ever chosen freedom, even when freedom came at terrible cost. The D marks certain people by name, but the will it represents belongs to all who choose to carry it. And that is why, after 800 years, it is stronger than ever. That is why the world government's fear grows with each passing year. That is why the dawn is finally approaching. Because the will passes on, always, inevitably, unstoppably, from generation to generation, from person to person, from heart to heart. The will of D lives not in blood alone, but in every spirit that refuses to accept the world as it is and dares to imagine what it could be. The D has been called many things over the centuries. The natural enemy of God, the clan of D, the bearers of the inherited will. But what does the D actually stand for? What does it mean? This question has occupied scholars and theorists for as long as the D has been recognized as significant. And the answers, as with so much about the D, are multiple, contradictory, mysterious. Perhaps the D means all of these things. Perhaps it means none of them. Perhaps it means something that cannot be translated into any single word or concept. But the theories exist, and they are worth considering. Dawn. This is perhaps the most popular interpretation. That the D stands for dawn. The breaking of a new day after a long night. Dawn. This is perhaps the most popular interpretation. That the D stands for dawn. The breaking of a new day after a long night. This makes thematic sense. The Void Century ended 800 years ago, and since then, the world has been in darkness. Darkness of ignorance, with true history hidden. Darkness of oppression, with the world government controlling everything. Darkness of lies, with the celestial dragons calling themselves gods. The bearers of D, according to this interpretation, are those who will bring the dawn. Who will end the long night? Who will reveal the truth and let light return to the world? This interpretation is supported by prophecies scattered throughout One Piece. Talk of the dawn, of the day when light will return, of the moment when everything changes. The people of Wano speak of the dawn. The prophecy on Fishman Island mentions it. Even Roger's final words, in a way, speak of a new beginning. The dawn is metaphor for liberation, for truth revealed, for freedom restored. If the D stands for dawn, then every bearer of it is a promise. A guarantee that no matter how long the night, morning will eventually come. That the darkness imposed by the world government is temporary. That light waits on the horizon, approaching slowly but inevitably. But there are other theories. Some believe the D stands for destiny, that those who carry it are bound to a particular fate. Not a fate that removes their free will, but a destiny in the sense of purpose. They are destined to challenge the gods, destined to disrupt the status quo, destined to carry forward the will of the ancient kingdom. This interpretation makes the D less about what they will do and more about what they are meant to do. It suggests that history has a direction, a purpose, and that bearers of D are the instruments through which that purpose is realized. They may not know they are fulfilling destiny. They may think they are simply making personal choices, but their nature ensures that those choices align with a larger pattern, a cosmic plan that has been unfolding for 800 years. Others suggest the D stands for dream, that it represents the power of dreams to shape reality. This interpretation is particularly popular because of how much emphasis One Piece places on dreams. Roger had a dream. Luffy has a dream. Every bearer of D seems to carry dreams that are impossible, unrealistic, too large for any individual to achieve. And yet they pursue these dreams anyway. They refuse to let anyone tell them their dreams are impossible. They reshape the world through sheer determination to make their dreams real. If the D stands for dream, then it represents the idea that dreams are not fantasies to be outgrown, but forces that can change reality. That believing in something impossible is the first step toward making it possible. Some theorists have proposed that the D stands for democracy, that the ancient kingdom was a democratic society where power was shared and rulers were chosen rather than born. This would explain why the world government, ruled by hereditary celestial dragons who claim divine right to rule, would fear the D so much. The bearers of D would represent an alternative vision of how society could be organized, not through bloodline and hierarchy, but through choice and equality. This interpretation is less supported by direct evidence, but makes philosophical sense. The D represents resistance to tyranny. What better symbol of that resistance than the idea of democracy itself? The idea that no one has the right to rule simply because of who they were born as? And then there is a darker interpretation. Some believe the D stands for devil, that the bearers of D are literally devils in the eyes of the world government. Not evil, but demonic in the sense of being opposed to the divine order. The celestial dragons call themselves gods. The bearers of D are called the natural enemies of God. In religious terms, what is the enemy of God? The devil. This interpretation does not mean that bearers of D are evil. It means they occupy the position in the world's cosmology that is opposite to the gods. They are the challengers, the questioners, those who refuse to accept divine authority. In this reading, the D is a badge of rebellion against heaven itself, a mark that says, I will not bow to your gods because I do not recognize their divinity. There is also the theory that D stands for drum, the drums of liberation that sound when Luffy awakens gear. 5. The heartbeat of freedom itself. If the D represents these drums, then it is not a word at all, but a sound. A rhythm, the beating of a heart that refuses to stop. This interpretation is newer, emerging only after the revelation of Naiga and the drums of liberation. But it fits. The D could be a visual representation of a drum, a symbol chosen to represent the sound of liberation. And bearers of D would be those whose hearts beat to that rhythm, who carry the drums within them even if they have not yet awakened them, who are, in essence, the music of freedom made flesh. Some have suggested simpler meanings. D for danger, D for defiance, D for doom from the perspective of the world government. Each of these has merit. Each of these captures some aspect of what the D represents. But perhaps the truth is that the D means all of these things, or none of them. Perhaps it is not a word at all, but a symbol whose meaning transcends language. A mark that carries significance beyond what can be expressed in any single term. Or perhaps, and this is the most mysterious possibility, the D is actually part of a longer word or phrase. Not D by itself, but D followed by something that has been lost. We see the pattern in names. Monkey D. Luffy. Gal de Roger. The D is always followed by a period, as if it is an abbreviation, an initial standing for something longer. What if there was originally a full word there? What if bearers of the ancient kingdom had names like Monkey Don Luffy or Galdream Roger? And over time, through 800 years of hiding and suppression, the full word was lost. Only the initial remained. The D preserved as a marker, even though no one remembers what it originally abbreviated. This possibility is tantalizing because it suggests that the true meaning of the D is something that has been forgotten even by those who carry it. That the original bearers knew what the D stood for, but over generations of persecution and hiding, that knowledge was lost. Only the letter itself survived, passed down through families who knew it was important, but no longer knew why. This would make the journey to Laugh Tale even more significant, because learning the truth of the Void Century would include learning what the D originally meant. Recovering not just history, but identity. Understanding at last what the letter in your name actually represents. But regardless of which interpretation is correct, regardless of whether the D stands for a single thing or multiple things or something that cannot be captured in words, one thing is certain. The D represents something that the world government fears. Something powerful enough to threaten their 800-year rule. Something that has survived every attempt to eliminate it. The exact meaning might be debatable, but the significance is not. The D is important. The bearers of D are dangerous. And whatever the D stands for, it is something that will eventually bring about change. The dawn, the destiny, the dream, the democracy, the defiance, the drums. All of these are coming. All of these are inevitable. All of these are carried forward by those who bear the D. The interpretations differ. The theories conflict. The exact meaning remains mysterious. But the direction is clear. The D, whatever it stands for, points toward the same destination. Toward freedom. Toward truth. Toward the end of the world government's control. Toward the revelation of what was hidden. Toward the completion of what was started 800 years ago. The D is a compass. And no matter how you interpret it, no matter which meaning you assign to it, the compass always points in the same direction. Toward the future. Toward change. Toward the moment when everything that has been building for 8 centuries finale arrives. The dawn that has not come yet, but that approaches nonetheless. Inevitable as sunrise. Unstoppable as time itself. The D guarantees it. Whatever the D means, it means that change is coming. And nothing the world government does can prevent it. The dawn approaches, and the bearers of D will bring it. There is one among the bearers of D who seems different from the others. Not because he lacks their characteristics, but because he possesses all of them, amplified, concentrated, expressed, so purely that he seems less like a person and more like the embodiment of what the D represents. He does not seek to carry the will of the D, he simply does it, naturally, unconsciously, as if carrying. The will is not a choice for him, but simply what he is. This person has already been mentioned many times in this tale, but now we must speak of him directly. Monkey D. Luffy, the one who carries them all. Luffy carries Roger's will, not because Roger passed it to him directly. They never met. Roger died before Luffy was born. But the will does not require direct transmission. It passes through inspiration, through example, through the alignment of spirits across time. Roger wanted to find the One Piece, to learn the truth, to reach Laugh Tale. Luffy wants the same things. Not because he knows what Roger wanted, but because he carries the same spirit, the same desire for freedom and adventure, the same refusal to accept that anything is truly impossible, the same tendency to inspire loyalty in everyone he meets. Roger started the Great Pirate Era, and Luffy is the culmination of it. The one that era was waiting for. The one Roger knew would eventually come. Luffy carries Joy Boy's hope. Joy Boy made promises 800 years ago. Promises he could not keep. Promises that were interrupted by defeat, by the fall of the ancient kingdom, by the erasure of the Void Century. But those promises did not die. They waited. They persisted in stone and legend, in the memories of those who refused to forget. And now Luffy walks the same path Joy Boy walked. Not consciously. Not because he knows about Joy Boy or understands what those ancient promises were, but because his nature aligns with Joy Boy's nature. He liberates without trying to. He brings joy without planning it. He challenges gods without recognizing them as gods. He is Joy Boy returned, not through reincarnation, but through the appearance of the same spirit in a new time. Luffy carries Ace's dream. Ace wanted to know if his life had meaning, if he deserved to exist despite being Roger's son, if he was loved. Ace found the answer before he died. Yes, his life mattered. Yes, he was loved. And he died at peace, smiling, having lived fully and died protecting his brother. Luffy carries Ace's dream forward by living, by refusing to let Ace's death be meaningless, by becoming stronger so that he never loses anyone important again, by pursuing the same goals Ace pursued, the same freedom Ace sought. Ace's dream did not die with him. It transferred to Luffy. And Luffy will complete it by becoming the Pirate King, by proving that those who carry the D can achieve what they set out to achieve, by giving meaning to every sacrifice that was made along the way. Luffy carries Odin's truth. Odin learned the secrets of the Void Century. He knew what happened. He understood what the D meant. He carried that knowledge back to Wano and tried to prepare his country for what was coming. He died before he could complete his mission, but he left behind a prophecy. A prediction that in 20 years, the dawn would come. That someone would arrive to open Wano's borders and defeat Kaido. Luffy fulfilled that prophecy. Not because he knew about it, but because his path naturally led him there. And in fulfilling Odin's prophecy, Luffy proved that the knowledge Odin carried, the truth he understood, was real and powerful and destined to be revealed. Luffy will carry that truth forward to Laugh Tale. He will learn what Odin learned. And unlike Odin, he will have the opportunity to do something about it. Luffy carries Dragon's Revolution. Dragon fights against the world government directly. He leads an army. He plans strategies. He works to overthrow the system through organized resistance. Luffy does not do any of this. He does not plan revolutions. He does not organize armies. He does not strategize about how to bring down the world government. And yet, everywhere Luffy goes, he creates revolution. He frees kingdoms from tyrants. He disrupts the world government's control. He inspires people to believe that change is possible. Luffy is his father's son not through deliberate choice, but through shared nature. Dragon's revolution is planned and purposeful. Luffy's revolution is spontaneous and unconscious. But they are both working toward the same goal. And when they finally meet, when father and son stand together, the revolution will be unstoppable. Luffy carries Garp's justice. Garp serves the Marines, but he does so on his own terms. He refuses to compromise his own sense of right and wrong even when ordered to. He protects those he cares about even when doing so contradicts his duty. Luffy does not serve the Marines, but he shares his grandfather's sense of justice. The belief that what is right matters more than what is lawful. That protecting those who need protection is more important than following orders. That strength should be used to help others, not to dominate them. Garp could never quite F it into the Marines, despite spending his life serving them. Luffy does not even try to F it into any system, but they share the same fundamental values. They just express them differently. Luffy carries Law's curiosity. Law wants to understand the D, wants to know what it means and why he carries it. Luffy does not care about such things. He does not wonder about the meaning of the D. He does not research the Void Century. He does not try to understand the deeper mysteries of the world. And yet, Luffy is on a path that will eventually answer all of Law's questions. Because Luffy will reach Laugh Tale. He will learn the truth. He will understand what the D means. Not because he seeks that understanding, but because understanding is waiting at the destination he naturally pursues. Luffy carries Law's curiosity fulfilled. The answers that Law seeks through study, Luffy will stumble upon through adventure. Luffy even carries something of Blackbeard's ambition. The desire to reach the top. To become the Pirate King. To possess the One Piece. But where Blackbeard's ambition is selfish, Luffy's is not. Blackbeard wants power for its own sake. Luffy wants freedom. The freedom to sail wherever he wants, do whatever he wants, live however he wants. Becoming Pirate King is not about ruling others. It is about being the most free person in the world. This difference in motivation creates opposite characters, but they are moving toward the same destination. And when they meet there, when Luffy and Blackbeard finally face each other at the end of their journeys, it will decide not just who becomes Pirate King, but what the Pirate King represents. Freedom or domination, liberation or tyranny, the true will of the D or its corruption. But Luffy is not just a compilation of other people's wills. He is his own person. He has his own dream, his own goals, his own unique way of being in the world. What makes Luffy special is not that he carries everyone else's dreams. It is that he carries them naturally, without trying, without even knowing he is doing it. Luffy does not set out to fulfill Roger's will or Joy Boy's hope or Ace's dream. He simply lives according to his own nature, and his nature happens to align with all of theirs. This is not coincidence. This is what it means to be a true bearer of the D, to embody the will so completely that you do not need to think about it. It is simply who you are. The world has been waiting for someone like Luffy, waiting for 800 years, waiting for a bearer of D who possesses not just some characteristics of the will, but all of them. Who is strong enough to challenge the gods? Who is free enough to inspire others? Who is joyful enough to laugh at death? Who is determined enough to never give up? Who is compassionate enough to help everyone he meets? Who is simple enough to cut through all the complexity and see what truly matters? Who is, in essence, the perfect vessel for the will of D. Luffy does not know he is this person. He does not think of himself as special or chosen or destined. He just wants to be the Pirate King. He just wants to have adventures with his friends. He just wants to be free. But in pursuing these simple desires, in living according to his simple nature, Luffy fulfills prophecies. He completes ancient promises. He carries forward the dreams of everyone who came before him. He becomes the culmination of 800 years of inherited will. He becomes the one that Joy Boy was waiting for, that Roger knew would come, that the world government has been dreading, the one who carries them all. And this is why Luffy will succeed where others have failed. Not because he is the strongest, though he is becoming incredibly powerful. Not because he is the smartest, because he certainly is not. But because he carries the complete will of the D, undiluted, uncompromised, pure. He does not question it. He does not analyze it. He does not try to understand it. He simply lives it. And in living it, he becomes the force that will finally bring the dawn. That will finally reveal the truth. That will finally complete what was started in the Void Century. That will finally bring about the liberation that the bearers of D have been working toward for 8 centuries. The world waits. The prophecies point to this moment. The pieces are falling into place. Luffy approaches Laugh Tale. He gathers allies. He challenges the world government. He awakens Gear 5 and hears the drums of liberation. Everything is aligning. And when the moment arrives, when Luffy stands at the center of the final war and the truth is finally revealed, it will not be because Luffy planned it. It will be because Luffy is who he is. Because he carries the will. All of it. Every aspect. Every characteristic. Every dream and hope and promise and revolution. The one who carries them all. Monkey D. Luffy. The bringer of dawn. The future Pirate King, the successor to Joy Boy, the natural enemy of God, the one the world has been waiting for. And he does not even know it, which is exactly why he is perfect for the role. And so we come to the end of our journey through the will of D. We have traveled from the Void Century to the present day. From the fall of the ancient kingdom to the rise of those who carry its legacy. From the first bearers of D to the one who will finally complete their mission. We have explored what the D means, where it comes from, how it manifests, why it persists. We have seen how it appears in different people, drives them toward different goals, creates different paths that all lead toward the same destination. We have witnessed the smile before death, the laughter in the face of gods, the refusal to bow that defines those who carry this mysterious letter. But perhaps the most important thing we have learned is this: the will never dies. People die. Kingdoms fall. Empires crumble to dust. History is erased and rewritten. But the will, the fundamental desire for freedom, the instinct to resist tyranny, the refusal to accept the world as it is given, these things persist. They cannot be killed. They cannot be erased. They can only be passed on. The ancient kingdom fell 800 years ago. Every building destroyed. Every citizen scattered or killed. Every record erased. The world government tried to eliminate every trace of what that kingdom represented. And they failed. Because the kingdom was not just buildings and people and records. The kingdom was an idea. The idea that freedom matters. That knowledge should be shared. That no one has the right to rule as a god. That idea survived in the bearers of D, in their blood, yes, but more importantly in their spirit. In their nature. In their inability to be anything other than what they are. For 800 years, that idea has persisted. It has been suppressed, hunted, feared. The world, government has executed countless bearers of D, has monitored families that carry the name, has tried through every means available to eliminate this threat to their power. And every attempt has failed. Because you cannot kill an idea by killing the people who carry it. The idea simply finds new carriers. It spreads to those who witness the executions and see the smile. It infects those who hear the stories of those who refuse to bow. It persists in everyone who has ever looked at the world government has created and thought, there must be another way. This is the power of the D, not the physical strength of its bearers, though many of them are powerful. Not the political influence they wield, though some of them lead revolutions. The power of the D is its persistence, its refusal to die, its ability to pass from person to person, generation to generation, century to century, always changing form but never losing its essential nature. The will is like water. It finds a way through any obstacle, around any barrier, over any wall. You can dam it, but it simply builds pressure. You can divert it, but it simply finds a new channel. You can try to contain it, but eventually, inevitably, it breaks through. The world government has been trying to contain the will for 800 years. They have built systems of control. They have created laws forbidding certain knowledge. They have established hierarchies where they sit at the top, unreachable, untouchable, calling themselves gods. They have done everything possible to create a world where the will cannot express itself, where freedom is limited, where dreams are controlled, where resistance is punished. And it has not worked. The will persists. In pirates who sail the seas, in revolutionaries who fight against the system, in scholars who seek forbidden knowledge, in ordinary people who refuse to accept their assigned place in the hierarchy. The will is everywhere. The D is simply its most concentrated expression. And now, after 800 years, the will is stronger than ever. Not because more people carry the letter D, but because more people carry the spirit it represents. The great pirate era that Roger started brought freedom seeking to the masses. People who had never questioned the world suddenly began to question. People who had never dreamed of adventure suddenly began to dream. People who had accepted the world government's control suddenly began to resist. Roger's final words did more to spread the will than any planned revolution could have. He made freedom contagious. He made the desire for liberation spread like wildfire. And that fire has been burning for over 20 years, growing stronger, consuming more, approaching the moment when it will finally engulf everything the world government has built. The bearers of D did not plan this. They did not coordinate. There is no secret organization of D bearers working together toward a common goal. They are scattered across the world. They often do not even know each other exists. Some serve the Marines. Some lead revolutions. Some are pirates. Some are scholars. They have different goals, different methods, different understandings of what they carry. And yet, they are all moving in the same direction, all working toward the same end, even if they do not realize it. This is the nature of the will. It does not need planning or coordination. It simply expresses itself through anyone who carries it. And the collective result of all these individual expressions is a force that the world government cannot stop. The dawn is coming. This is not prophecy. This is certainty. Not because fate demands it or destiny requires it, but because the will demands it. Because after 800 years of darkness, the accumulated force of countless individual wills, all oriented toward freedom, has become unstoppable. The world government can delay it. They can fight against it. They can try to stop specific individuals. But they cannot stop the will itself. They never could. They just did not realize it. They thought that by erasing the void century, by killing bearers of D, by maintaining control for 800 years, they had won. But they only delayed. And every year of delay made the eventual reckoning more certain, more powerful, more complete. Luffy will reach Laugh Tale. He will learn the truth. He will reveal what was hidden. He will complete what Joy Boy started. This is certain not because of prophecy, but because of nature. Luffy's nature drives him toward this destination as inevitably as water flows downhill. He cannot stop himself from pursuing it any more than he can stop breathing. And when he reaches it, when the truth is revealed, when the One Piece is found and the world learns what the D truly means, everything will change. The world government will fall. The celestial dragons will lose their power. The systems of control that have governed for 800 years will crumble. And a new age will begin. An age of freedom. An age of truth. The dawn. But the will does not end there. Even when the world government falls. Even when the truth is revealed. Even when the liberation that bearers of D have been fighting for is achieved. The will persists. Because the will is not just about defeating a specific enemy. It is about a way of being in the world. About refusing to accept tyranny in any form. About maintaining freedom once it is won. About ensuring that what was fought for is not lost again. The bearers of D will not disappear when their current mission is complete. They will continue. New challenges will arise. New forms of oppression will emerge. And new bearers of the will, whether they carry the letter D or not, will rise to face them. This is the eternal nature of the will. It is not a goal to be achieved and then set aside. It is a constant orientation toward freedom. A permanent refusal to accept tyranny. A continuous expression of the human spirit's desire to be free. The D represents this will in its most concentrated form. But the will itself exists in everyone who has ever looked at injustice and felt compelled to fight it. In everyone who has ever been told they cannot do something and done it anyway. in everyone who has ever laughed at death because they knew that what they believed in would survive them. People die. Luffy will die someday. Every current bearer of D will eventually pass on. But the will they carry will not die with them. It will pass to others. To their children, perhaps. To those they inspire, certainly. To anyone who witnesses their lives and understands what they represent. The will has survived 800 years. It will survive 800 more. 8,000 more. As long as humanity exists, as long as there is oppression to fight and freedom to pursue and dreams to chase, the will persists. The D is simply its name, its marker, its way of making itself visible to those who understand. But the will itself is eternal. So let us close this tale with the same certainty that opens it. There exists a letter the world fears. A letter that marks those who carry an inherited will. A letter that has persisted for 800 years despite every attempt to eliminate it. That letter is D, and what it represents, what it has always represented, what it will always represent is this: the will to be free, the refusal to bow, the smile before death, the laughter in the face of gods, the dream that persists beyond any individual dreamer, the hope that survives any darkness, the dawn that must eventually come no matter how long the night. The will of D never dies. It only passes on. From generation to generation. From person to person. From heart to heart. Forever. Eternally. Until freedom is won. Until truth is known. Until the dawn arrives. And even then, even after victory, the will persists. Because freedom must be maintained. Truth must be protected. Dawn must be defended against those who would bring back the night. This is the will of D. This is what the bearers carry. This is why the world government fears them. This is why they will ultimately prevail. Not because they are stronger, though many are strong. Not because they are smarter, though some are brilliant. But because they carry something that cannot be killed, cannot be erased, cannot be stopped. They carry the will, the eternal, unstoppable, inevitable will toward freedom. And that will, that fundamental human desire to be free, is the most powerful force in any world. More powerful than any weapon. More powerful than any government. More powerful than any god. The will of D lives in Luffy. In every bearer of the name, in everyone who carries the spirit even without the name, in you, perhaps, if you understand what it represents and choose to carry it forward in your own way. The will lives, the will persists, the will never ever dies, and that is why the dawn is certain, why liberation is inevitable. Why freedom will ultimately prevail. Because the will demands it. And the will of D cannot be denied. Not forever. Not after 800 years. Not now that the final bearer, the one who carries them all, has finally appeared. Sleep now. Dream of liberation. Dream of the dawn. Dream of the smile before death and the laughter that echoes through centuries. Dream of the will that passes from heart to heart, from generation to generation, from past to future. Dream of the D, dream of freedom. And know that when you wake, the will persists. In the story, in the world, in all of us who refuse to accept that freedom cannot be won. The will of D never dies. It only passes on. Always forward. Always toward dawn. Always inevitably toward liberation. This is the truth. This is the will. This is the D. and nothing, not even death itself, can stop it. Roger's legacy is not just the great pirate era. It is not just the inspiration he provided to countless pirates. His legacy is understanding. He proved that the truth could be reached. He proved that the secrets of the Void Century could be uncovered. He proved that bearers of D, if they were determined enough, strong enough, brave enough, could learn what they were really carrying. And that proof, that example, changed everything. Before Roger, the D was a mystery even to those who bore it. After Roger, it became a goal. A destination. Something that could be understood if you were willing to sail far enough, fight hard enough, search long enough. Roger transformed the will of D from an inherited burden into an achievable quest. And in doing so, he brought the world one step closer to the dawn that had been promised 800 years ago.